The galaxy was silent, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of fear. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had ruled the stars with an iron hand. Its fleets moved like storms, dark and endless, swallowing every world that resisted. To the Empire, no life was sacred, no freedom worth protecting. Entire civilizations had been broken. Proud nations became slaves. Whole cultures erased from memory, their names now only whispers in the dust of forgotten planets. Every race in the galaxy knew the law of the Empire: obey or be destroyed. Among the rulers of the Empire, pride was common. They saw themselves as eternal, unstoppable, unshakable. Yet even in their greatest halls, carved from shining crystal and black iron, there was one secret they never spoke aloud. They were afraid, not of the alien races they had conquered, not of rebellions or uprisings, for those had been crushed countless times before. No, their fear was of something older, something they had buried in their records, something they prayed was nothing more than a myth. The fear had a name: humans. The stories were ancient, carried through half-erased data files and hushed legends among the outer stars. They told of a species born on a world called Earth, a planet hidden far away at the edge of the galaxy. Unlike other races, humans were not powerful in body, nor advanced in technology when they were first known. But they were different. They were stubborn. Where other species surrendered, humans fought. Where others broke, humans endured. They had once faced enemies stronger, faster, and older than themselves, yet they had risen again and again. To the Empire, humans were dangerous not because of strength, but because of spirit. But the Empire had not seen them for centuries. Some believed they were extinct, gone with the passing ages. Others thought they had vanished into the dark, leaving only their ruins behind. Many laughed at the very idea that humans had ever been real. The Emperor, however, did not laugh. On his throne of steel and light, the Emperor often sat in silence, his golden eyes staring into the dark beyond the known. Maps. He had read the old reports, seen the fragments of human wars. He remembered the words of his ancestors who had once warned, "If humanity rises again, the Empire will tremble." So the Emperor commanded his scholars to erase Earth from every star chart. He forbade the mention of humans in the schools of the conquered. He made the galaxy forget. For fear can be controlled, but memory is dangerous, and so for ages, the galaxy moved on. The Empire grew fatter, prouder, more ruthless. The people of 1,000 races lowered their heads and prayed only to survive. The stars were quiet. The silence stretched, heavy and endless. But silence is never eternal. On a small colony far at the edge of Imperial reach, children whispered, strange stories of sky warriors who would one day come. In hidden markets, merchants spoke of ghost signals drifting through the void, carrying words in an unknown tongue. In the dark places of the galaxy, hope stirred. Hope that the Empire could not destroy completely. The Emperor felt it too. Late at night, when the halls of his palace were empty, he would rise and look out at the stars. He could not hear their voices, but he felt the unease in his bones. Something was waiting, something that had not died, and though he ruled with power unmatched, he could not kill the thought that haunted his mind. What if the stories were true? What if Earth still lived? The Empire was vast, mighty, and proud, but it had one weakness, a weakness it could never admit aloud. Its greatest fear was not rebellion. Its greatest fear was not invasion. Its greatest fear was that one day, from the silence of the stars, a human warship would appear. And when it did, the galaxy would never be the same. The Empire's shadow stretched far, reaching worlds that had never known peace. One such world was Kalros, a small colony at the edge of the stars. It was not rich, not powerful, not important. Yet the Empire came all the same. Their warships appeared in the skies without warning, dark shapes blotting out the sun. The people of Kalros ran to the streets, looking up with fear in their eyes. They knew what those ships meant. Every world knew. The demands came quickly: obey, pay tribute, bow to the Empire. The voices of the Imperial officers echoed cold through the air carried by machines. Resistance was not an option. Kalros had no army, no weapons to defend itself. It had only farmers, miners, children, and families who wanted nothing more than to live in peace. When the colony hesitated, the Empire acted. The warships opened fire. Buildings crumbled in flames. The ground shook as energy beams ripped through homes and schools. The people screamed, running in every direction, searching for safety where none existed. Mothers clutched their children, fathers shouted in desperation, elders prayed to gods who no longer answered. Among them was a boy named Lyra. He was young, no more than 12 years old, with wide silver eyes that reflected the burning skies. He had lived his whole life on Kalros, playing in the fields, listening to the old stories his grandfather told. But those days felt like dreams now, fading as fire swallowed his world. His family had tried to escape. His father had run into the chaos, trying to find a ship to carry them away. His mother had stayed behind, holding Lyra's hand, guiding him through the smoke and fear. But in the confusion, the blasts came closer. The air turned to fire. His mother's grip slipped away, and suddenly, Lyra was alone. He stumbled through the ruins, tears streaking his face, calling for his family. Father, mother. His voice cracked, lost in the thunder of destruction. No answer came, only the roar of the Empire's guns. The Imperial soldiers marched into the colony, their armor black and sharp like knives. They moved without pity, herding survivors into groups, forcing them to kneel. Their orders were clear: break the will of the people, show the strength of the Empire. Lyra hid among the rubble, trembling, his small body pressed against the cold stone. He watched as his neighbors were struck down for daring to resist, as cries for mercy were ignored. His heart ached with a pain too heavy for a child, but in that pain something else grew. He whispered, not to the soldiers, not to the Empire, but to the stars. Please, he said, his voice breaking. If anyone can hear me, save us. Save my people. The words carried no sound beyond his lips, yet they felt heavy, like they belonged to something larger than himself. A prayer, a hope, a desperate cry sent into the endless night. The Empire laughed at such prayers. To them, no help would come. No power in the galaxy could stand against their fleets. They believed they were eternal, untouchable. But the stars heard. Far beyond Kalros, in the deep silence of forgotten space, something stirred. An old machine, buried in shadows, caught the faint signal of suffering. Its systems woke from long sleep. Lights flickered. Engines whispered. A heartbeat of steel returned. The humans had been silent for centuries. But silence does not mean death. As Lyra's tears fell into the dust of his ruined world, the darkness of space shifted. A spark had been lit. A warship was moving, and soon, the Empire would learn that even in their endless dominion, there were prayers that could still be answered. In the endless dark of space, silence had ruled for centuries. Stars burned, planets turned, but no voice had spoken from Earth. The galaxy had forgotten the humans. Some said they had died out. Others said they had hidden themselves, too weak to face the Empire. To most, they were only a myth, but myths have a way of returning. Far from the busy lanes of the Empire, in a stretch of empty void where no ship dared travel, a great shadow drifted. It was a vessel, ancient yet alive, half buried within the cold embrace of a dead asteroid field. Its hull was scarred from forgotten battles, its surface worn by time. For centuries, it had slept in silence. This ship was not alien. It was not imperial. It was human, the warship Resolute. Long ago, when humanity had first reached the stars, the Resolute had been one of their guardians. A ship built not only for battle, but for survival. Its systems were strong, its heart fierce. Yet when the galaxy turned silent around Earth, the Resolute had vanished into the dark, waiting, hidden, listening. For ages, it heard nothing. Only the endless hum of space. Until now. A faint signal reached its dormant sensors. A cry, broken and desperate, carried on frequencies the Empire ignored. It was the voice of a boy, trembling and small, whispering to the stars for help. Please. If anyone can hear me, save us. The ship listened. Its old machines stirred. Ancient programs woke from their slumber, recognizing the human tongue. Systems flickered on, one by one, navigation, weapons, shields. What had been silent became alive again, like a sleeping giant opening its eyes. The warship's engines rumbled, deep and steady, pushing against the void. The asteroid field shook as dust and rock scattered before its power. Slowly, the Resolute rose, cutting through the black like a blade of steel. Deep inside, there was no crew to give orders, no captain to command, yet the ship remembered. Humanity had built it with more than circuits and steel. They had given it a purpose: protect, fight, endure. And now, that purpose burned bright once more. Alarms flared as the Resolute charted a course. Its sensors locked. Onto the source of the signal, the small colony of Calros now burning under the Empire's cruelty. Calculations completed, engines roared louder, and the ship tore through space with a speed that defied belief. In the void, a predator had awoken. Back on Calros, the people had lost all hope. The Imperial soldiers marched freely, their laughter cruel, their weapons sharp. Survivors were dragged from the ruins, forced to kneel under the shadow of the Empire's flag. Above, the Imperial warships floated, vast and unstoppable, their cannons still glowing from fire. Lyra, hidden among the rubble, felt the ground shake. At first, he thought it was another attack. He pressed his hands over his ears, bracing for the end. But then he noticed something strange. The rumble was different, steady, powerful, like thunder rolling across the heavens. He lifted his eyes to the sky. From nowhere, the stars seemed to bend. Space itself shimmered, twisting as if afraid. Then, with a sound like a storm breaking, a shape tore into existence. A massive ship unlike any Calros had ever seen appeared in the black sky. The Imperial soldiers froze. Their commanders shouted in confusion. No record spoke of a ship like this. No database recognized its design. Its armor was thick, dark, marked by scars of wars they did not know. But one thing was clear. This was no Imperial ship. The Resolute had arrived, and though no human voice yet spoke, its presence alone sent fear through the Empire's fleet. Something they had buried in history had returned. Something they thought extinct was standing against them. For the first time in living memory, the Empire faced not submission, but defiance. And in the broken heart of a child, hope began to burn again. The skies above Calros burned with the glow of Imperial warships. Their sleek black hulls floated like blades in the heavens, confident and unchallenged. For generations, no fleet had dared to face them. No enemy had stood in their path for long. But then came the shadow. The Resolute emerged from the rift of space like a storm-given form. Its massive hull gleamed with the scars of forgotten battles, its engines still glowing with the fire of its sudden arrival. For the people of Calros, it was like seeing a mountain move through the stars, impossible yet undeniable. The Imperial fleet froze for a heartbeat. Their sensors screamed warnings, trying to identify the intruder, but no record matched. No species they had conquered, no pirate ship, no lost ally. It was something else. Something old. Inside their command deck, the Imperial Admiral sneered. "One ship," he said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Only one. Crush it. Show them what happens when they stand before the Empire." Orders were given. The fleet moved, cannons turned, the sky lit up, bolts of fire, streams of energy, and weapons forged by centuries of conquest rained down toward the unknown warship. The people of Calros cried out as the heavens themselves seemed to break. But the Resolute did not fall. Its shields flared, shimmering with a pale blue light. The storm of Imperial fire struck against it, but the ship held, steady. It moved with a calm grace, turning slightly as if measuring its enemies. Then without a word it answered. The first cannon shot from the Resolute was like thunder tearing through the silence of ages. A beam of energy lanced across space, striking an Imperial cruiser directly. The cruiser's armor melted, its engines split apart, and in seconds the mighty ship became fire and wreckage, drifting helplessly into the void. The galaxy had not seen a human warship fight in centuries, but in that instant the truth was revealed. They had been worth fearing. The Imperial Admiral's smirk vanished. "All ships attack at once," he barked, but his voice betrayed the tremor of fear. The battle exploded across the skies. Imperial. Ships swarmed, their cannons blazing, but the Resolute was relentless. It moved with deadly precision, each shot finding its mark, each strike tearing through ships that once believed themselves invincible. Where an Imperial ship needed a squadron to destroy, the Resolute fought alone, and it fought as if the stars themselves guided its aim. On the ground, the people of Kalros lifted their eyes. They watched as the unknown warship stood between them and death. For the first time, they saw Imperial ships, symbols of terror, fall like broken toys, shattered by fire. Lyra, hidden among the ruins, felt his chest burn with something he had never known before. Hope. "They came," he whispered, clutching the stone in his hand. "Someone came for us." His tears, once of despair, now fell with awe. The Imperials grew desperate. Fighters swarmed out like angry insects, streaking toward the warship. The Resolute's defenses lit up, turrets spinning, cutting them down with precise bursts of fire. Explosions dotted the sky like stars dying, one after another. The Admiral's voice cracked through the fleet's comms. "It cannot be human. Humans are gone." But deep inside he knew the truth. The stories his Emperor feared were real. Humanity was not dead. And if one warship could do this, what would happen if there were more? The battle raged on, fire against fire, steel against steel. The colony below trembled under the fury above, but the people no longer cowered. They saw the impossible happening before their eyes, the Empire bleeding. For the first time in centuries, the Empire was not winning. And in that moment, the galaxy itself seemed to pause, holding its breath as history turned. The Resolute stood unbroken, its guns still glowing, its shields still bright. It had not spoken again, but its message was clear. Earth had returned, and the Empire's worst fear was only beginning. The sky above Kalros had become a storm of fire. Imperial ships circled like predators, their cannons blazing, filling the heavens with death. Yet in the middle of it all stood the lone warship, the Resolute. It did not retreat. It did not hesitate. It fought. Every cannon on its massive hull roared with power. Streams of fire shot across space, tearing through Imperial ships that had never known fear. One after another, cruisers and destroyers exploded, their burning wrecks falling like shattered stars. The people on the ground could hardly believe what they were seeing. All their lives they had been told the Empire was unbreakable, eternal, impossible to resist. Yet now from the ruins of their world they saw the truth with their own eyes. The Empire could bleed. The Imperial Admiral's voice shook with fury as he screamed into the comms. "Do not falter. Destroy that ship. The Emperor's eyes are upon you." But his words carried no strength anymore. His fleet, once proud and unstoppable, was breaking apart before a single enemy. The Resolute moved like a living thing. Its thick armor shone as it absorbed the storm of weapons. Its cannons spoke with precision, each strike calculated, each shot ending another enemy life. What other ships would call a desperate battle, the Resolute made into an art of war. From the ruins of Kalros, Lyra stared up with wide eyes. His heart pounded in his chest. For the first time since the invasion began, he felt more than fear. He felt courage. He whispered softly, "Fight for us. Please. Don't stop." As if hearing his plea, the The Resolute unleashed its full power. Dozens of turrets lit up, casting bright lines across the sky. A squadron of Imperial fighters screamed toward it, diving in a deadly swarm. But before they could even strike, the Resolute's defenses tore them apart. Explosions lit the darkness, fire raining down like falling stars. The Admiral's flagship moved forward, larger and deadlier than the rest. It fired its heaviest weapons, beams strong enough to tear cities apart. The Resolute's shields flared. Under the impact, the light so bright it blinded those watching below. For a moment it seemed as if even this ancient warship might finally fall. But then the light faded, and the Resolute still stood. Smoke curled along its armor, but its cannons glowed brighter than before. It answered with a single shot. The beam cut through the flagship's defenses as if they were paper. The ship that had led the fleet for decades cracked in two, its crew's screams silenced in an instant. The explosion shook the void, scattering debris across the stars. The Admiral was gone. Panic spread through the Imperial ranks. Discipline shattered. Ships turned to flee, abandoning the colony they had once sworn to destroy. But the Resolute gave them no mercy. Its cannons followed, striking down every vessel that tried to escape. The battlefield became a graveyard of Imperial steel. On the ground, survivors rose from the ruins. Their tears fell freely, but this time they were not only tears of sorrow. They were tears of wonder, of relief, of hope. Families held each other, whispering words they had not dared to speak in years. Freedom. And Lyra, the boy who had prayed to the stars, watched it all. His chest ached with emotions he could not name. He had lost everything, his family, his home, but he felt something new burning inside him, something the Empire had tried to kill in all people. Hope. Above, the Resolute hovered silently, its cannons cooling, its shields dimming. It had not spoken a word since its arrival, but its actions had shouted louder than any voice. The Empire had faced countless battles, but this one was different. This time they had not fought rebels or broken nations. They had faced humanity and they had lost. The battle was over, but its echo spread far beyond Calros. Across the galaxy, whispers began to rise. Whispers of a warship, of a people thought extinct, of a legend returned. The Empire had always claimed it was eternal, but now the galaxy had seen its weakness, and the fire of resistance had been lit. The battle over Calros ended, but its story did not. Wreckage of Imperial ships still drifted in the skies, burning like dying stars. The colony lay in ruins, but the survivors lifted their eyes not with despair, but with wonder. They had seen the impossible. They had seen the Empire lose. The Resolute hovered above, silent and watchful, like a guardian carved from steel. To the people below, it was more than a warship. It was a promise that the Empire was not invincible. News of the battle spread quickly. Smugglers whispered about it in shadowy ports. Merchants carried the tale from one world to another. Refugees repeated it in hushed voices. A human warship had appeared, and it had destroyed the Empire's fleet. At first, many did not believe it. They said it was rumor, a trick, or perhaps just the wishful dream of broken people. But as more stories spread, as more survivors from Calros arrived with their own eyes and memories, doubt began to fade. Something had happened, something real. And with that truth came something the Empire feared most: hope. On distant mining colonies, workers who had labored under the Empire's chains for generations whispered that maybe they did not have to bow forever. On hidden moons where rebels once lived, broken spirits began to rise again. Entire species who had been silent for centuries looked to the stars and wondered if humanity had truly returned. Even in the heart of the Empire, whispers could not be silenced. Soldiers who had lost family in wars against the Emperor began to wonder if they might fight for something greater. Merchants, spies, and slaves carried the rumor in their hearts. The humans were alive and they had not forgotten how to fight. On Calros, the survivors gathered among the ruins. They had little left: no homes, no armies, no protection. They had each other, and above them they had the Resolute. The boy Lyra stood with the others, his silver eyes fixed on the warship. He remembered the moment he had prayed to the stars. He remembered the silence that had followed. And he remembered when that silence broke with the arrival of the ship. To him, it was no myth, no story. It was salvation. He whispered to the sky, "Thank you," though no voice answered. He felt in his heart that the warship heard him. The Imperial survivors who escaped the battle carried their terror back to their masters. When they reported to the Emperor, their words trembled. They spoke of a ship that no weapon could break, of a machine that fought like an army, of a name they had been told to forget, Earth. The Emperor listened in silence. His golden eyes glowed with a rage he did not show. Around him the court stood silent, too afraid to speak. The old fear had returned, the fear his ancestors had warned of. Humanity was not extinct, and worse, they had chosen to fight the Empire. He clenched his fist upon his throne. "Find them," he ordered. "Find Earth, burn it, erase it from existence, or all we have built will fall." But deep in the galaxy, beyond his reach, the story was already spreading faster than his soldiers could stop it. For every world that heard the tale, a spark of courage was lit. For every family that whispered it at night, a dream of freedom was born. The Empire had built its rule on fear, but fear was breaking, and in its place, hope was rising. The galaxy had slept under chains for too long. Now, because of one warship, the people were awakening, and they were ready to believe that the humans would not stand alone. The wreckage of battle still drifted above Kalros, but the sky was quiet now. The Empire's fleet was gone, shattered, by the arrival of a single ship. For the survivors below, the silence no longer carried fear. It carried something new. It carried freedom. The Resolute remained above the colony, motionless yet alive, its glowing engines casting light across the broken land. It did not fire. It did not conquer. It simply stood guard, watching over those who had suffered. To the people, its presence felt like the embrace of a shield, cold steel yet full of protection. Days passed, but the warship did not leave. It repaired itself slowly, its scars still smoking from the fight. The people of Kalros began to rebuild, under its shadow drawing courage from the silent guardian in the sky. For the first time, they were not afraid of the stars above them. Then the message came, carried across every channel, across every frequency the Empire used. The Resolute spoke. Its voice was deep, strong, and human. The galaxy froze as the words echoed in every corner where life existed. "This is Earth. We are not myths. We are not forgotten. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. To the Empire, know this. Your rule of fear is ending. If you seek us, we are ready." The message was simple, yet it struck like a weapon into the heart of the galaxy. On distant slave worlds, people fell to their knees, tears in their eyes, whispering the words again and again. Earth is real. Earth is here. In hidden caves where rebels plotted in secret, hope surged through their veins. And in the courts of conquered species, silence turned to courage. The galaxy had waited too long for a voice like this. A voice that did not beg, did not bow, but stood tall and promised defiance. On Kalros, the boy Lyra listened with wide eyes. He had never heard a human voice before, yet it felt as if the warship was speaking directly to him. His chest swelled with pride, and he whispered softly, "We are not alone anymore." But far away in the shining throne hall of the Empire, the Emperor listened as well. The words reached him like knives, each one cutting deeper than the last. His court stood frozen, their faces pale. They had heard the name they had tried so hard to erase. Earth. The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed, his hand trembling as it clenched the arm of his throne. He remembered the warnings of his ancestors. He remembered the fear that had haunted the Empire for generations, and now that fear stood before him, alive and unbroken. "Prepare every fleet," he whispered, his voice filled with fury but also with dread. "Find them. Destroy them. Yet deep in his heart, he knew a truth he could not speak aloud. The Empire had always ruled through fear, but now fear belonged to them. The people of the galaxy had seen their masters bleed, and no chains could silence that memory. The warship Resolute had not just won a battle, it had awakened something the Empire could never kill. Hope, and hope was more dangerous than any weapon. Across the stars, voices rose in secret. Families spoke Earth's name with reverence. Children dreamed of freedom. Soldiers whispered about rebellion. The galaxy, once silent under chains, was beginning to roar. The Empire's worst fear had come true. Not simply that humans had returned, but that humanity's fire had ignited the hearts of countless others. From one warship, from one battle, from one answered prayer, the galaxy had changed forever. And in the endless dark of space, where the stars burned like watchful eyes, the message of Earth carried on, a promise, a warning, a beginning.